it was just I just couldn't hold it anymore. But for years, I just kept my chin up and did what I had to do.
Hi and welcome to Shadowboxr. My name is Jacqui-Lee Pryce. Today's guest is a former Olympian. He's been described by Tony Bellew as one of the most avoided heavyweights in the heavyweight division. His name, Michael, the Bounty Hunter. How you doing? You
That's
all right?
right. Yes, yes, thank you, and shout out to Tony Bellew for the compliment.
Yeah, boy. We'll get into that later. But how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for letting me be on the show and conversing with you.
Hey, thanks for joining me. We met, didn't we, briefly when you were in London? We'll get into that a bit later. But when you were here for Dubois Usyk.
Yes, yes. When I was being pulled around and all different directions. Yeah, it was a good time then.
To be fair, actually, I might as well talk about it now. To be fair, you actually called it, didn't you? You said that there was I'm ad-libbing now that Dubois was not going to beat Usyk. You were one of the few that called it.
Yeah, I was trying to give hope, and like everybody else, there was a lot of England fans that were really pulling for him and wanted to see and had their expectations and ways that they could see the advantages that Daniel had, but like I said, it just wasn't enough. Usyk's very sound, and he's been doing it for a long time, and he's a good boxer.
Yeah. And you also fought him, which we'll come to a bit later. But I want to take it back. I want to take it back to the beginning. What was early life like for you?
You mean like growing up in boxing in a boxing family? I never was too much of into amateurs. I didn't really know about it really. I think my dad, it was because of my dad didn't want his kids to really pursue the sport. But obviously that didn't work out because we were daddy crazy, and he was very charismatic and just fun to be around, and he was always like the center of attention no matter where he went, and and not that he was trying, that just was his personality. So obviously, me being named after him, I want to be just like him. So yeah, but he kind of kept me away. I didn't really start boxing. I didn't have my first fight until I was 17, really. So yeah, a little late, even though I was always in the gym. I used to watch him spar with Mike Tyson and all sorts of different other fighters like that and be in the gym and crack jokes. And, he never really, I never seen his spirit never broke like that. So, to see that, it was very inspirational. It was definitely something that, I took heed to, growing up, and it's more of a pride thing, and we have a certain thing because of the way he was, so it runs in my family. My brother, my older brother, my little brother, and my mom was a referee and a judge. My dad was an advisor and helped with Joe Lewis, Archie Moore, and many others.
Do you know what, right? When I was researching you, they talk about your father, they talk about your grandfather. They didn't mention your mother. I didn't know your mum was a judge.
Yeah, she was. I mean, she was like an amateur. It was amateurs because we owned the Muhammad Ali boxing gym in Santa Monica back in the '70s, and had a lot of champions come out of that gym and stuff. And yeah, so she it was a family business. We helped around the gym, and she did some officiating, and yeah. So we've been around the business for a long time.
About your mum, because I'm actually really impressed by that, because you're talking about what, the 70s, you're saying, 70s and 80s. So would she have been one of the first officials in amateur boxing? Female officials.
Not I would, yeah, I would think so. I would think so. She would be at least one of them. Yeah, she would have paved the way in that regard. I never really thought of it like that, but yeah, like you said, we've had a lot of experience. It's been a family thing. My uncle, her brother is a boxing trainer. Was the youngest boxing trainer to ever have an actual hold a boxing license. He was like 12 years old. Helping um, Tommy Hearns with Emmanuel Stewart. He was like under Emmanuel Stewart, carrying his little bag and his little cut man stuff. And he very. I mean, he fought as well, but he was more of a trainer very early on. So Yeah, it's just been around my family. My grandpa also managed George Foreman for quite some time. Don King, been knowing my family for, since I before I was born, you know what I'm saying? My dad was with Don King, and, my grandpa, there's just a clip that went out. It was Don King talking about George Foreman and Joe Frazier fight. My grandpa was he was they give him credit to making that fight happen, like the sole person to making that fight happen. And he got paid, George Foreman, because he was with George Foreman at the time, got paid more than he did for the Ali fight on that fight. A lot of people, wouldn't know that, but yeah. So yeah, we've been around been around the business for a long time, and it's I've had very similar story to my father as far as being, in the top 10 for many years and never getting a shot and never getting a shine. And it's just it's been unfortunate, but we like I said, we're here and we're not gonna stop, and it's a family thing. So
I want to take it back a little bit. You talked about obviously how deeply entrenched your family is in the sport of boxing. And firstly, for those that don't know, because there might be some new people that are tuning in, your father obviously was Michael Hunter Senior, and you mentioned him, and they talk about him as being really charismatic, um, such a talented boxer with a high IQ, for a heavyweight as well. His
mhm,
movement and everything. They talk about his movement in the past where heavyweights didn't move like that. So he was
mhm.
bringing some flavour to the table as well. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I find it, and I know you said that your father didn't really want you involved in boxing, but were you sort of sitting in the gyms and thinking, I really want to get involved in this? And he was just saying, Junior.
Well, nah, not necessarily. I just, I always was in the gym. I didn't even know. I thought I was too young to box. Didn't know, back in the day, there were not a there were only professional gyms, well, at least the ones that I knew. I didn't know any amateur boxing, and there were some kids a little older than me. They were older than me, but I just didn't see that. I didn't know that you could box at that age. I didn't it didn't register in my head like that. I did go to the gym. I hit the bag. I tried the speed bag. I go jump rope. I was always in the gym messing around. When my dad was working out and stuff, and or I would just be quiet and sit there. And just watch him. I wouldn't move. Sometimes, or sometimes I would. So, but I was daddy crazy, so I had to be right there with him. So I had enough experience and enough, time in the gym with him, to have some type of knowledge grow. Excuse me, we've always had, fight parties. You know what I'm saying? Anytime, Mike Tyson was fighting or Holyfield, it was always a big family thing because our whole family's involved in him. Cousins and all that. So it's just something that like I said, it's kind of been something that we've always done.
Talk me through those fight parties because I've just got loads of pictures going through my mind because listen, you were involved in royalty and wasn't your dad Mike Tyson's sparring partner as well?
Yes, he was for several years, and one of his claim to fame was, "If you ask me how hard Mike Tyson hit, I can't answer that because out of the 5 years, he never hit me." So, and that was very, very true. Don King, sat him, for the most part, he just basically sat him there as a sparring partner, so he kinda wouldn't move up in the rankings like that. Now he got a little paid, probably about $5,000-6,000 a week, especially back then, it was probably a lot of money, but, and my dad was kind of he was wild, loose cannon, and, so he was able to he was okay with that money, setting and all that, but I think that, obviously he wasn't too okay with it, but I think that that was Don King's strategy to keep these type of guys that were, would dethrone Mike Tyson from making 20 million a pop. And my dad wasn't a knockout artist; he was flashy, flamboyant. But Mike Tyson was, who he was, and he had that, that persona at that time. So I just think that Don King was very smart on his tactics in that way, and but yeah, he was his sparring partner for several years.
Isn't that a thing though? And I think it still happens today that sometimes, listen, I know everyone needs a sparring partner, but sometimes don't they kind of use the ones that are a threat and they hold them back a little bit? They sign them and hold them back. Is that something that you recognise?
Yes, yes, it's definitely a part it's been a part of the game, because we don't have any NFL or NHL or no overseer. The rules are whatever you can make it, you know what I'm saying? Whatever you make of it. And yeah, my dad was like one of the first people to actually drop Mike Tyson. And then they made a movie about Mike Tyson and they wanted my dad to play wanted my dad to play himself, but he wanted him to get dropped. And my dad wasn't going for that. So they put his one of his good friends, Mike McCullum. I mean not Mike McCullum, Oliver McCall, in to play the movie, and he basically played my dad in a
Hey, he
sense.
was looking at that, looking at the dollars probably. I don't know. You know. Also though, like movies
Yeah,
aren't real life, so but I can see that your dad probably was like a very proud man, and then on top of that, he was finding it difficult to get about. So yeah, I kind of get it. I kind of get it.
right.
Oh
Yes,
my
yes.
days. Sorry, I'm just listening to the
Mhm,
stories and
mhm.
yeah. So
Smart.
you say you started amateur boxing at 17. What was the name of your gym again?
I've started at well, the original professional boxing gym was called Golden Gloves Boxing Gym. That's where Mike Tyson used to train, and they had I forgot an old man name, Doc Brodus. Doc Brodus he was like 100 and something then. And he was George Foreman's trainer. Yeah, Doc Brodus is an old school guy. And I remember when I was a kid, I used to see Doc Brodus. He was already an old man, and he used to run the gym. He was like the manager guy of the gym, and boy, he was a mean little man. He was about probably 112 pounds, a little guy. And I remember, I never forget. I remember I seen going into the gym. There's always obviously these pictures on the wall, older pictures, and I seen Doc Brodus. He was a boxer. I didn't know that at this time. He had boxed a long time ago, but he had some pants on. And he was like this, and I was like, dang, he is old. When I seen that, I was like, whoa. He was really. I just remember as a kid, it shocked me. I was like, wow, that's Doc Brodus. Like it was like almost like a drawing. It was so old. It was like a white and black picture of him having like that. I
Like
was like,
pedal
wow. And
pushers.
he literally had like those pants that kind of are tight and they stop
Wow.
like a little at the calf, like those boxing ones. Yeah. Uh-huh.
What is it like to walk in there and sit there and absorb all of that? Just history.
Yeah, I think that, as a kid, I didn't really see too that much. Now I have a better understanding. If I was to go in that gym now, it'd be like a historic, like a museum, you know what I'm saying? But because there's been so many, fights and sparring, and I mean all the champions at that time had went through that gym, and it was Vegas was, the mecca at that time. So but I definitely was able to. I had my own eyes, so I was able to watch, and I even remember meeting Mike Tyson over there, and I was about maybe 13 at this time, and I was pretty much almost his size. I was very close to being his size, and I just remember him shaking my hand, and he was so strong when he shook it, and I don't know if he did it on purpose. I almost felt like he had it out for me in a sense, you know what I'm saying? Like he was doing it on purpose, but he was just so strong at that time. I just remember me being a kid. I was like, wow, that's a grown man's strength.
Have you seen him since you've
Yes, I've seen him several times.
have you? Does he remember that moment?
No, I don't think so. Mike has had a lot of things happen in his life, and he's constantly going through major things. So I don't think he would have remembered that situation, but I've met him a few times. Me and the Olympians we were about to almost jump him one time because we were at the Manny Pacquiao Timothy Bradley fight. All the Olympians, they brought all the Olympians out, and one of my guys, Marcus Brown, was so excited to see him because he was, Marcus Brown is from New York, and we were sitting right behind him, and we got, he was so excited, and he was like Mike Tyson, and he tapped him on his chest like that, and man, Mike got livid, and we were like, "Hey," "Hey, man, all right now, is this our still our teammate?" So you about to get jumped by like ten fighters now. But I think he was, Mike Tyson has been around and been through so much that, I think that he was just a little kind of shocked and scared about the situation, you know what I'm saying? Or startled. I wouldn't say scared, but startled and a little upset about it. So, but yeah, I've met him on several different occasions. I love the person that he's become, uh, to know that all the stuff that he's had to deal with from being 17, or 16 years old, homeless and out in the streets, not having mother or father really in that position, from being 19 and on top of the world, you know what I'm saying? And all the money and, it's not only when you're the fighter, every sport, every entertainment, every other thing, everybody respects the fighter, you know what I'm saying? Because, we're the warrior, we're the gladiator. So even the basketball players, will show you love and stuff like that. So just to know that all the stuff that he had to deal with at such an early age, and to see him, have to, go through it and go through it, and now he's getting humble and he's found his way. I really admire that, because he hasn't had it easy.
Yeah, for sure. It just made me laugh when you said there was 10 of us that tried to, jump him. It took 10 of you.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, right, right. We were like, "Hey, man, I know it's gonna take us. One of us is gonna get knocked out, but you ain't gonna get us all now." It's like the one gorilla versus 100 human men,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah. Yeah, crazy. But you're right. He has, he's had an extensive career and come through. And to be honest with you, I think in some respects he's lucky that he wasn't boxing now, I should say, where social media is a massive thing. Because
Exactly, you're right. I totally agree because they would have. It's a different era, and a different time, and you'll never see another Mike Tyson like that. And that energy again. I don't think we'll allow it.
I have to ask now, w what did you think to him, fighting Jake Paul?
uh, you know, a lot of people say he was holding back, and I do think he was holding back for a second, for certain things. But Jake Paul also held back, and I definitely seen that. Um, Jake Paul, when it was really time to step it up, and it was really time to actually fight. In those later rounds, I seen that, and Don and Mike, excuse, and Mike Tyson was tired and fading. I seen that Jake Paul, he kind of let him live and let him go, and actually a joy came over me at that moment because I really respected Jake Paul. Now it changed it. At first I was kind of like blah blah blah. I didn't really know what to think about it. I really didn't care for it. But when I watched it and I seen that Jake Paul really, they just really did it to get paid. And some people might be mad about it, but to me, I actually enjoyed that. I respected Jake Paul a lot more, and I seen that he was a real dude at that time.
I've always been a Tyson fan, and,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll leave it at that. It was very difficult for me to watch. Um, so you start your boxing career at 17. You've had an extensive, or you had, should I say, an extensive amateur career. Won several national titles, Golden Gloves as well. We'll get to the national team and the Olympics in a minute, but yeah, can you just share your resume with us?
Yeah, well, like you said, I don't know how many national titles I've won, but when I was there, you know, I was undefeated, pretty much. Nobody beat me. Um, I've lost twice in the States. Only other losses I've had were, Olympics and, Pan Ams and stuff like that. So yeah, I've had some decent. I have a decent record, and I originally started, boxing. I originally started boxing as an amateur. I said I was going to take this on because I wanted to get closer to my dad. He had been pretty much kind of retired, and looking for other, you know, avenues on getting finances, and he was training, That's So Raven,
Yeah.
So Raven Simone.
The actress. I'm trying to think what she was in. What was she in as a kid?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, she was in the Cosby Show.
That's it.
Yeah, that's what you're talking about. Yeah, I remember you were right when she was little. She was in the Cosby. Yeah, and he was training her and her mother, just celebrity training and just trying to get some money in Hollywood, California. And my idea was like, I wanted to bring my dad closer to me, and I wanted to bond with him a little bit more. So I decided like he's not gonna be able to refuse me fighting. If I have an amateur fight or something, he's not gonna not come. He's gonna have to start, being involved. So that was my idea. And it was unfortunate that he was gunned down and shortly after, a week after my fight, my first amateur fight. So he never really got to see me really lace him up and see what I got. So that was something. And I still end up fighting. I still end up fighting, winning. And but that was actually a big turning point for me. I was never able to really uh enjoy boxing like I wanted to because of that misfortune. And it turned very that moment it turned into me doing it for a bond and having a fun to having to provide now. I was the guy that had to step up in a certain way and kind of take care of my family. I was able to get $30,000 grant money to go to any school. When I was like when I was a little kid, I got in a car accident so I had money that was coming to me when I turned 18 as well. So um, but I was able to, and I did some classes, some online classes while I was online, traveling overseas and stuff. But it turned from, actually trying to do it for fun to actually say, hey, this is what I'm gonna have to do. And, shortly after, it was like a year later, I made it to the Olympic team. And then a year later, I went to the I was able to, I made it and all that. And I had that whole little experience. And, yeah, so yeah, that's kind of been my whole little story. It hasn't been an easy one, and nobody said it was going to be it was going to what's the word I'm looking for? Uh, yeah, it was going to be fair, but it was going to be worth it.
I want to take it back to you talking about becoming the provider for the family, because I was talking to another athlete the other day, and African American families, definitely Caribbean families, people don't realize
Yes.
the pressure that we're put under to provide, not just for our
Yes.
families, right, our immediate family. It's cousin, auntie.
Yes, very, very so. I've always tried to help with and I'm always the guy that's always trying to help. I'm a giver, I think, by nature. And yeah, I've always tried to help, exactly, my aunties, uncles, family. And yeah, I think that, my me I had to grow a little bit more. And yeah, we kind of it's very hard, like you said. Just even dealing with the industry and having to present yourself in a certain way. I mean, I get asked all the time about if I'm married, if I got kids, or saying they want to know my life outside. Make sure that I'm a stand-up guy, a black man. And these are the things that we have to deal with. I've always had my chin up, and I've always tried to do the right thing no matter what. I really I just tried to always do the right thing. And it's always I feel like it's worked out for me. For the most part, I've gotten beat over it. As far as the industry, because the industry is not for the nice guys. It's not a nice guy game. And I've always tried to play fair or be fair, or you know compensate or even overcompensate for something that I've in my wrongdoings. So but you know how it goes. Like you said, being in that position, sometimes I'm pretty sure that I'm not the only one. We know that I'm not the only one that has to deal with these things. But it's not an easy task at all. We're here to break that generational curse.
I do wonder though, like talking about your father being shot and then you having to step up to the plate. Is it then a situation where you almost have to pack your grief in a box and shelf it.
I'm glad. Oh my God, I'm so glad you said that because the moment, the day that I found out, it was the most, obviously the most gruesome. I'm getting goosebumps now talking about it. But my mom had a cry that um, I never heard before, and when she was when we were able to hear what she was saying, because she really couldn't even say it. She was so busy, all over the place, all on the ground. When we were able to hear what she said, me, my brother, and my sister, they both fell out on the ground and they were all over the place. And I I I didn't shed no tears. I couldn't. I didn't really until like a year later, until I was actually a couple years. I was already on the Olympic team. We were training and all that, and I wasn't even talking to my family. I was living in the Colorado Springs with my Olympic training team, and I'll never forget it. Me and Saddam Ali we were out hanging out or whatever, and I couldn't do it anymore. I just broke down, and uh, it was just I just couldn't hold it anymore. But for years, I just I just kept my chin up and did what I had to do. I really didn't complain. There was nothing to say, nothing. I just told my mom, don't worry, you ain't gonna have to work. I don't, this is on me now. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I did, and you know, it worked out.
I'm assuming, I could be wrong, but I'm assuming that your mum sounds like a very strong woman, and parents go through situations that they don't always share with their family. And so that noise that you heard, that howling, I'm guessing that you heard, is a shock because, boy, she was always the strong one. Do you know what I'm saying?
That's right. That's right. And it's crazy because maybe about a week before he passed, or a couple days before he passed, she told me, because I was really like, me and him were very close. I was his pride and joy. So, and she told me to talk to him, almost to kind of get mad at him, or say something to him, but I didn't see it. I didn't really, it didn't dawn on me, and I was daddy crazy. So I'm like, be mad at my dad? I'll be mad at you before I be mad at him. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I'm not being mad. I would never be mad at my dad. I don't care what he does. Yeah, and then that happened, and it all, over time, it all kind of settled in. I'm like, damn, she was really trying to help me, so, trying to be strong. She didn't know what other avenues or what other ways to go around it. And she knew that I was able to touch him, and I was getting ready for my fight. And, she knew what was ahead. And, yeah, it was just unfortunate that, I didn't get the message, and it didn't, recognize what was really happening. Cause I definitely feel like, I could have done something.
You were young, and yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you can't put that on yourself. I
Yeah, yeah, and one thing I never really did, I've always kinda took it with a grain of salt. Like, I know that there was something I could have did, but it wasn't I wasn't there, you know what I'm saying? I didn't do it, he's a grown man. And, like I said, there's things I said I could have stopped. But
I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but you're a kid. Do you know what I'm saying?
yes, I was, and I had that kid mentality. Like I said, it switched over in a moment. When that happened, it just turned over, you know?
Firstly, you skipped over the Olympian part. 2008, you did go to the trials, didn't you? The Olympic trials.
Yes.
Is
Uh-huh.
this what
Yeah,
you're?
yep. I went to the Olympic trial.
Sorry,
I
go on.
won. You know, it was kind of if you ever see, like, I always had a shirt that said "Make that man proud." You know, um, you know, I was always fighting in the name of him, in a sense, and taking on somebody else's burden, I guess. But, I really didn't, I didn't see it like that at that time. It was not my job to see it at that like that. I just knew I had to do what I needed to do. And when I get time to think about it, I can, but this is not it. So I was, like I said, that had a lot of fire. I had a lot of fire in me. from what happened and me having to show up, me having to show up, and I did that.
You're in camp in, for the trials for 2008. Is this when you had your, for lack of a better, description, breakdown?
Yeah, it was, preparing for I was already on the Olympic team. I was already, considered the, um, Olympian. I've already won the Olympic trials. I swept the Olympic trials. You have two losses you're allowed to, lose before you're totally out of the Olympic trials. I swept it. I didn't lose not one time. Me and Deontay Wilder, I was the heavyweight. Deontay, well, they call it super heavyweight in the amateurs. And he was pretty much the cruiserweight or heavyweight in the amateurs. So I used to spar him. I mean, I pretty much only had he was my only sparring partner at that time. So yeah, I made my own way. I even then I was doing stuff a lot by myself. I was my mindset was to, take care of my family, to be honest. I was really, and pay the bills. I was able to pay for cars. No, I was able to, pay for the rent a couple months up and buy a new car and yeah, but like I said, a short, we were probably about a couple months before the Olympics. Maybe about yeah, it was maybe about 9 months maybe before the Olympics. We were training and getting ready for the for games, and we still had to qualify for the to actually be on the to actually have your spot in the Olympics. So, us were going through some qualifiers. Some of them were able to qualify at the Worlds. I actually lost my qualifying fight at the Worlds. I fought Andy Ruiz at the Worlds, and yeah. So, but I was short. You know what I'm saying, and I just was having a hard time. I was just able to. I kept getting a little shorter. My last qualifier, I fought a guy. It was in Guatemala, and I got poisoned. What happened was we're directed and known not to drink their water when it comes to those different countries and third world countries. And uh, what happened though is I wasn't thinking. I ended up drinking lemonade that was not like soda lemonade, not other, but from their water. You know what I'm saying? And that got me. It got me sick. I lost like 14 pounds in a day, 2 days overnight pretty much. And but the thing is I had already been winning. I was already in the tournament. I had won. I was fighting my last qualifying fight, and oh, that was a sad moment too, man. And what happened was, yeah, I think I was, but I was able to because now normally you have to go see the doctor every day. I did go see the doctor. You have to go get a checkup and see if you're healthy enough to pass it. But once you get past a couple days, they don't really check your vitals anymore. You know what I'm saying? They just check your hands, your head. You know what I'm saying? Jump up and down. So I was able to pass the test to get me to continue to fight. But when I got in that ring, I just had no energy. I got beat. I was crying in the ring, and my coach was crying. And it was like it was still the second round. After the first, I couldn't do it. I was upset because I wanted to win, you know what I'm saying? I was still fighting it, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And I'll end up losing. And that got me out of the actually my Olympic spot. So I actually did not compete in 2008, And then actually, then the guy I lost to in the world championships, his name was Islam Tamiziev. He was a Russian guy, big old Russian guy. He was very good, very, very good, like a big linebacker, but he was fat. He was very explosive. He actually knocked out everybody in the first round of the world championships, and they kept asking me, hey, you have to go to these like booths, and everybody's asking you after your fight, a little media booth, and everybody gets to do a little interview and ask a question. And they kept asking me, now you're doing good, but fighting Islam in your qualifying fight, how do you think you do? He's knocked everybody out in the first round. I said, well, at that time I was all pumped up. I said, no, he pooped just like me. He put his pants on just like me. So, you know, um, he's human, you know what I'm saying? So, he got 2 arms. We're gonna get it in, And, I end up losing that fight. I actually had him running at the end of the fight, but, how the system was, I had lost. I was a little too far down in the beginning, and, he got up on me a little on points, and then what happened was that was his last fight. He never, he got sick. He, like, something happened to his head or something. He got, like, a aneurysm, or he got something was yeah, I don't know if it was, I think it had to do a lot with that fight, but I don't it was exactly from just only from that fight. But, yeah, he got and they were about to put me back in there. So I was actually about to go back to the Olympics. So back to the training camp, I started training again, and then they said, "You know what? He's gonna fight one more time, and he's gonna fight in the Olympics." And then I think he got knocked out, and then, yeah, that was it. That was the last time I've heard from him.
Wow. When you look back at that time, because as you was talking, I kept thinking the resilience in you has been there since a kid. And also, I was thinking, I understand now why people avoid you. I get it.
Yes, and that's really, really what it is. It's not, because I'm not the fastest. I'm not strongest. I don't, I just refuse to give up. I just refuse to quit. I have to finish the job. You know what I'm saying?
It's that
So
mental strength, though, that's scary. Do you know what I'm saying? You did go to the Olympics, though, didn't you? I will get back to the fight. You did go to the Olympics 2012. You've actually fought some really good people. You fought some good people. You fought Artur Beterbiev as well, didn't you? Was it in the quarters or the prelims?
no, it was the first fight. I lost in the first fight, and I actually got sick. I got sick in Manchester. Now it rains over there a lot, right? And
Yeah.
when I was over there, I was okay. But when I got that night, it was raining, and I got in the bus to drive to London. I got sick from the night all the way to drive over, and it wasn't enough to get me bed. It wasn't bed sick, but it knocked my shape, my respiratory. I couldn't. I was wheezing. I just I couldn't breathe, and when you're in the Olympic Village, now I'm in the Olympic Village. I kind of probably took whatever I wanted if I didn't. Um, I probably could have before I got to I would have probably took whatever, to get me better. But once you get in the village, you have to take whatever give you or whatever they, have. And they were only giving you Dayquil or NyQuil, wherever their sponsors were. It wasn't really even about, let me give you the right thing. I felt like it was more all the stuff I got was sponsored medicine. I feel like, and I never really did get better, and I would have won that fight. But the only if I would've accepted that I was sick. See, I didn't accept that I was sick. I said, "I don't care if I'm sick. I don't care who it is. This is my moment. I'm about to fight sickness. I'm about to fight Artur Beterbiev and whoever else." I was already being sued. Me and the USA Boxing were in court. I was being sued. I was suing USA Boxing, for taking my money. So it was really a me against the world, they put because I was basically the head captain. I was like the older guy. It was only Rashid Warren was the only guy that was like more experienced than me. So it was originally supposed to be me and him that were team captains, but because me and USA Boxing were in legal disputes and going to court because of whatever they didn't want to pay my monies or whatever, my Olympic spot was threatened every day, every minute, all the way up until I lost. So, uh, and they put a lot of antics on me. It was the got involved. I really didn't even talk to a lot of the fighters or none of the fighters really. I was cordial, but I didn't have that bond like I wanted to because I was looked at in a certain way, and they were eyeing me. So I just said, let me just shut my mouth, and when I win, they ain't gonna be able to say nothing to me about it. So, and so I overlooked me being sick because I was like, Imma just, it's okay, I'm gonna fight everything. But if you watch the fight, I won 2 rounds and lost the last round and lost the whole fight. So and it was a double tiebreaker I lost off of. So after the double tiebreaker, and they always go after the USA team. They don't want the USA team to win no medals. So can't avoid it. They will. So when they after the double tiebreaker, they ask each judge, who do you think won? Who do you think won? Who do you, and basically I only had I think one American judge at that time or something like that. And I was outvoted 2-3. So then that's how that went. So I was and did you see Arthur Beterbiev made it to the finals and lost to Usyk?
I know, that's what I'm saying. You fought some
Yeah.
good fighters, and thinking about what you went through, it's it's not an excuse, but it's like for you to. I am assuming that also part of not accepting that you're sick, you've spent all that time trying to
Mhm.
get to the Olympics, but you're also fighting in effect the
Yeah, it was
team or the
yeah.
circumstance. You want to
Yes,
prove them wrong.
exactly. It was just the whole, and it was. I swear, I was telling my man, I said, "Don't worry, it's okay. I'm, I'm gonna get this one." And I did what I could, and like I said, I won the first couple rounds. I lost that last round, and they just gave it to me.
I just wanted to
Yeah,
touch briefly on, we've talked about the kind of stop and start of your career, no fault of your own, but you have kept active. Did you take part in this team combat league?
I did the first season. It was something that obviously I needed a little something something. And, I need to stay active. It was just kind of a fit for me to just, what I'm saying, I didn't have no fights come in and, I had to pay the rent and all that. So, uh, you know, um, yeah, I just did the league and they were begging me to come on there anyway. Once the team came here to Vegas, I was like one of the main things. I felt like I was the LeBron James of that league for that thing. I think I got the MVP of the whole league or I didn't get it or something like that. I should have got it and I didn't get it or something like that. But I basically knocked almost everybody out. It's crazy because I didn't knock anybody out, but I had everybody out on their feet. But nobody got totally stopped. But they all got suspended. None of them could fight the next time.
So just explain to me, because we don't have this here. It's an American thing. It's a team. It's a team made up of several weight classes, and then there's
Mhm.
something to do with 24 fights. Can you explain it better?
Yeah.
Because yeah,
So they
yeah.
so yeah, let's say there's 10 or 12 teams. I mean team members. Um and there's two teams that will compete with each other and each of them only get one round and then they go to the next one, right away. It's only one round and the next one's already warming up and loading up for to get in there when that guy is fighting, or two fights ahead, they're already kind of warming up, stretching out. And you get a point, I think you get more points for a knockout and you get, a point for winning and you don't get any points for losing. So uh and at the end of it when they tally it all up and then they have like it's a tiebreaker, they'll have fight rapid fire rounds or some type of you know um some type of point system maybe at the last two fights or something like that, or the main fight will be worth a little bit more, something in that way. And yeah, and they'll tally it all up and see what team won, you know what I'm saying? So, and and we were able to train and, you know, come together as a team, and train as a team, and we were able to obviously we knew each other and we weren't all from the same we were from the same area but from different gyms, but now we're all in together and being a team. So we were able to be cool and get be friendly and have some camaraderie with some guys and some of the coaches and stuff like that. It was a cool experience. I'm glad I did it, yeah, but I seen that the next league season it seemed like a lot of people were getting hurt and sick, or I mean, just there was a lot of things happening, people passing away, and it was really unfortunate to see to see that happening. So I think that a lot of people weren't really they needed more eyes or more professional boxing people to know when somebody should compete and not, yeah, because some of, you know, maybe even not even necessarily. I think they did the medicals and all that was good, but they just, I don't know. I just think that they needed to have better. Almost that's why they need matchmakers. You know what I'm saying? You can't really, you know, there's matchmaking for a reason. You know, you have to have some type of, you have to know what's going on and how who's going to be a good fight and not.
When you say people passing away, actually in the fight or after the fight?
Yeah, no, yeah. One guy got and that's what I'm saying. They didn't recognize. I don't know. They didn't see that he had been stopped a few times, or nobody told him that he was stopped in the gym a few times. Yeah, that was his last. He I think he died in. I think he got one in a coma from the TCL league that fight, and he never. That was it. He never woke up. And then another one, a dude just he had like a seizure right in the middle of the ring, and the dude didn't even get hit. He just froze and then passed and fell on the ground. And it was like a lot of things kept happening. I was just feeling really bad for the league and you know, so I don't really know what happened to that situation, but yeah, there was a lot of things going on that second season.
They've got a third season now.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. Yeah. Yeah, so hopefully this one is a little bit better. Maybe they tightened it up. I know that also I know that also that, it changes, you know, they you know, when you know, it was the first season, then the second, you know, they try to get tighter, you know what I'm saying? They're trying to they're still kind of experimenting as well, so, as long as they're able to do the season and correct the right the wrongs, you know what I'm saying? One of the guys I knocked out and I woke up. He went to sleep, he was sliding down and I hit him and he woke up and started throwing punches, you know, so you know, I don't know how they feel about that experience. You know, and I know that a lot of the guys were younger, big, strong kids. And, you know, they weren't super experienced as I was, so it was kind of a little mismatch in that regard. You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
I talked earlier about you being in the UK in July to see Dubois versus Usyk, and I hear this a lot that your only loss. So first of all, your only loss is against Usyk, isn't it? In
that's right.
professional
That's right.
boxing, and apparently you're the one that everybody says gave him one of his toughest fights.
Right. Yep. And I got sick then too. I didn't get sick. I wasn't sick. I was malnutritioned. I was dead, you know, I didn't have anything, and even because at a world title championship fight, they do the weigh-ins, and then they do the night of the fight, you weigh in, and I was literally 5 pounds under, than I weighed at the weigh-ins. This is a cruiserweight fight, so I think the limit is not 199, I was like 192, and I weighed 190, maybe 197 or 198, 999, the weigh-ins, and then I dropped down a lot. And even I remember the girl, she looked, got me on the night of the fight, weighed in. She said, "Oh, that's strange. I never seen anybody be less in their fight than the weigh-ins." And then I kind of knew I was like, man, I'm gonna be in trouble, you know. And when I went in the ring, I was never really trying to win. I was just trying to survive the whole time. I was already was a dead man in the first round, but nobody knew that, you know, and nobody was able to, you know, obviously see that. They still were, um, you know, they still say I gave him his toughest fight. So, but really, I had knew, and I was actually going to the third round. I was trying to think of a way to how to get it disqualified or how to reset or start over or you know what I'm saying? But when I was walking back to the corner, I said one thing and it changed my whole. I said, "Oh man!" I said, "Now you got two options. You either could go through with this or or call it a loss." But I was like, but it was only the first round. I was like, but I didn't want the TKO on my record. I did not want that. I was like, "Nah, I'm not." And then when I said that to myself, I was like, "Dang!" I didn't know what to do. You know, I was kind of stuck. I was like, "I'm just going to be a long night." So I just did the best I could, and I seen in that fight, you know, there's a law in boxing where you box the fighters and you fight the boxers. You go watch that fight, and you go tell me who was the boxer. Yeah, you go tell me who was the boxer. So, you know, him beating somebody who had, you know, 10% in their tank, you know, because I was when I found out when they woke me up, I had ate lunch. I mean, what happened is ate breakfast and I missed lunch and dinner. I went to, I was my body was you know going through you know whatever it's going through you know, and I ate a nice big size breakfast, but it put me to sleep all the way until nighttime. I didn't wake up until 7 o'clock at night in the at PM, and then my team woke me up. Hey, we gotta go. Blah blah. I said, I haven't eat. You know what I'm saying? What are you talking about? I got to get ready for the fight. You know what I'm saying? And it wasn't like I was going to get ready for the fight. It wasn't like, oh, let's go to the arena and watch the rest of the fights. No, it was they were knocking on my door late, like, hey, where you been? You know what I'm saying? And I was like, and I started sucking down honey, just to try to give me energy. But I did one thing that really messed me up. I drank a lot of water on an empty stomach. If you ever drink a lot of water on an empty stomach, what you're gonna do is in about an hour or 20 minutes, you're gonna pee out the rest of your minerals or rest. So then I went to zero, you know what I'm saying, for whatever I had in me, other than my little glucose that I might have spiked a little bit. But really, I had nothing, no energy or no calories to burn, you know what I'm saying? And I didn't have no team. I was sparring, whatever I could find. I had my camp was literally $2,500. And I was just, doing what I could, and I was okay with it. I wasn't complaining. But that day of the fight, that's when I really messed up.
I understand that obviously you're a grown man and part of the responsibility is yours. But looking back, do you feel that the team failed you as well?
Oh man, it took me I wanted to blame the team so bad, you know what I'm saying? I wanted to point, and I kind of have to put some credit on them, but that made me see that I don't care who it is. I can't trust nothing and not a soul when it comes to that situation. You know what I'm saying? Next time, I'll be totally. I don't care who it is, what the situation is, and that's what. Because I've always blame myself. I only say, well, what can I do? You know what I'm saying? Yes, the situation went south or whatever, went sour. Um, but what could have I have done differently? And which was not put my trust in people. You know what I'm saying? I don't care if they say they got me to the world ends. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to that situation, and I have to stand on my own 2 feet, I have to, I have to bite down and take my own, do my own thing. So I only blame myself.
I think in order to grow as an individual, to grow as an athlete, you do need to look at yourself. But equally, there was a team, and one thing that I used to do at the end of each season was go, okay, how can I be better as a coach? To be knocking on someone's door, just before a fight, it's like, to me, you're trying to
Man.
sabotage.
Yes, I really was upset about it, and it hurt me. I had a, you started thinking about all the different things that wasn't really there or went wrong or could have went in a different way. If you would have did this, and you just start thinking. But like I said, that was a really hard one for me to swallow. But like I said, I have to put it all on me and take it all on the chin. How it comes. And make sure that won't happen again.
You coming to the UK recently, I think I heard you say somewhere you kind of came to make things happen in a respect, and you have made things happen. Okay, so 2 fights you've accepted. Am I correct in thinking that? So it was first announced that you were going to fight Jarrell Miller in September in Riyadh, and then on the other hand, we then hear that you're fighting Pulev in October. So my first thought was, those 2 fights are quite close together, but hey. And then we get this whole Don King situation. He ordered a cease and desist over the Miller fight. Am I correct in thinking that?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. But what the thing is, he didn't actually file it. He just wrote a piece of paper and sent it to them. He didn't. He just there was no legal action done. He just really was barking and screaming because he really has nothing to stand on. You know what I'm saying? So usually what they would do is send a cease and desist and the contract, or say, hey, you cannot do this. Because this, you show proof, or you go file it. File a cease and desist. But he never did that. He just sent it to everybody. I try to just, try to punch the biggest man in the room, hoping everybody else will run away. And and that usually works. You know what I'm saying? He's Don King. He has a reputation for that.
But it's either he forgot because he's getting older, or
Right.
he did it because he thought, like, old school tactics. And I'm like, this is the new school. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yes, exactly. And before I took that jump, and I made sure that I already knew his tactics and what he was gonna do, So, actually kind of everybody else did as well, and everybody was prepared for it. I've agreed and I made sure my two biggest situations were answered, which was Big Baby Miller was gonna be in that ring September 11th, which I had big doubt on, and that they were going to be okay with Don King. Now, I was okay with Don King and moving forward because I knew that he didn't have a leg to stand on. He's going to start barking. He's going to start making noise. He's going to start putting stuff in the media, and we do know that this is his tactic and his antics. We went through the lawyers and we talked about it, and we went through what the procedures we were supposed to do to handle that, and they said they were good with it.
Your dad was signed to him, wasn't he? And I'm guessing he's kind of experienced the same
Yeah,
sort of thing. Um, Looking back, was there any kind of red flags when you first signed with Don King?
I already knew what I was getting myself into. That's why I said I'm always like 4 or 5 steps ahead, So I worked out all the avenues, in my head, and I knew the routes that might happen and might not happen. This was perfectly planned. There was only another avenue that could have went that he would have actually fulfilled what he said he was going to do, and we would have been on top of the world together, or that he was going to do half of what he did, and I was going to put me in position anyway because I only needed him to do half of what he said, and I knew I was going to be in a great position because really I was already the WBA mandatory. Um, and they just took my ranking off from inactivity. So it wasn't hard for me to get back in that position, and I knew he could because he had the relationship with the WBA. So people think that say, "Oh, he's an idiot," and I don't, I don't feel anything for him. I hope you don't because this was all planned. I've had to walk these. What I'm saying. I tell people I'm not the smartest man in the world, but I'm very attentive to what I've got going on. You know what I'm saying? I told them, please, I already knew exactly what was going to happen, and it worked out just as I planned it.
Just quickly, Baby Miller. He's usually someone that obviously has a lot to say before a fight.
Right.
He's to be fair, he's good at selling a fight. But
Yes, he
were
is.
you not friends before? And then
No, that's my guy, man. That's my guy. We trained together in the Vladimir Klitschko camp for several camps. I've always had respect for him, and he blocked me on Instagram, which I don't think he ever blocked anybody else on Instagram. He's usually talking shit to them. Excuse my language. He's usually talking mess, and him blocking me says a lot. I know that he may come back with the same antics and tactics as before, or he might just bite down a little bit. But I know that he knows this is a little different than what he's having to deal with before in the past, and because he's usually has different. He knows how to sell the fight, and I don't think because of our relationship and our friendship, and he's seen me in the ring, and I've seen him in the ring, and we've had that little bond. I don't think he was able to come at me right away. He had to say, okay, let me at least go away and then figure out how I want to approach the situation. I'm not the person to talk mess and to do that. But it took a little off of a shade off of him. I feel like off of his game, and that's part of his game. Game plan and talking mess and getting in your head, as well. So I think that part he has to come at it in a different way, and maybe he'll be in just getting in shape and thinking about the tactics on how to defeat me because that might be a hard task in itself, and he knows that I'm straight faced anyway.
and I'm speculating, but it could mean also that he values the friendship that much that he doesn't even. Because listen, we he's probably one of the best trash talkers in the
Yes.
game,
Yeah.
and for him to
Yes.
just shut down because we were all ready for the trash talk, and it was like, oh, block.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? And there's a part of me
Yeah.
that wonders whether he's like, I don't want to get into it with Hunter because I want this. Potentially, I want
Yes.
this relationship to last past this fight.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yes. And maybe I hope so. Like I said, Mike Tyson, is talking about Henry Armstrong. I don't know if y'all seen the post. He said, if you were my friend, you would fight me. I need the money. I need to make the fight to make a living. You know what I'm saying? So why don't we come together and make money together? And that's a sign of disrespect of not wanting to, fight and help your brother. His route was going one way, and it kind of altered in a sense, and he's had to fight his way out, and he's had to fight himself and have some resilience in himself to continue this fight. Of him, being called out for the and all that. That's another. He had to come back up, and he's had to been forced to talk more crap than he would probably would want to. But he's done it, and he's gotten himself back up there. Like I said, I didn't call him out. We've always stayed in our own lane. So now he's calling everybody out, and nobody wants to fight. And they brought my name up, and I wasn't gonna deny Turkey's first offer. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't gonna. I mean, as far as an opponent, you know what I'm saying? We didn't even get to the price yet. He just said threw the name out there, and I said, I can't deny it. This is my home. This is Vegas. I don't know if that fight really happens. I was definitely throwing doubt in their eyes and seeing, because I have doubt in myself. I said this fight doesn't go on. If this was any other situation, this fight would not have happened. If Turkey did not have the Dana White effect on this situation, this fight would have never happened, because he would have outpriced himself, or everybody else would have outpriced himself, and then they would have just moved on without me. They would have had the show and had somebody else on the show, which usually happens. And Jarrell Miller could have just said, he would have just said, nah, I'd rather just stick with somebody else. Or if it was Frank Warren's show, then he would have went to, Eddie Hearn's show, or he would have went to, he would have continued to search. But because Turkey is kind of running the whole show and the whole ship right now, it was kind of he was kind of forced to, fight me, or it was gonna be hard for him to get more fights. And like I said, it's unfortunate, but it's just business. I'm gonna have no bad blood with him. I hope, we find some, we get cool, and it's all good at the end of the day, and maybe it will break something that we could continue now we could be a little bit more closer, or maybe fight again, or whatever, what I'm saying, maybe coming to camps, or maybe even start doing some things together in more ways, because once two guys have been in that ring and had those real fight, not just a sparring is good too, but when you've had that real fight, and you already respect the guy, there's just a kind of a bond there, you know what I'm saying? That was a Pulev tactic to stall, and they have more fight outside the ring than they do inside the ring, when it comes to the lawyers and um, you know the managers and all that. That's where their real fight is. If you always see, how Pulev's, been managed and how he's moved. They've always used those type of tactics, and just instead of just staying in there and just fighting whoever they have to. But if Don King would have just did what he said he was going to do, and been honorable and integrable, this fight would have never happened, and I would be dealing with Pulev right now, and that fight would have probably already happened. But they were both using the same tactics. They weren't agreeing with each other, but both using stall tactics, which just happened to help them benefit both of them. I've been in the mandatory position 3 or 4 times already. I've always lose out on the business side. I've never lost in the ring.
It was a tactic to stall you, but then something else better dropped in your lap in a respect. So
kind of figured that would happen once I, fought that first time. I knew I was going to get my position back. I knew I was going to be number one, blah, blah, blah. So I said, look, if you don't do, and look, 9 times out of 10 any contract that I've signed, which it feels funny to say this, but I have to give credit to Eddie Hearn. Shout out to Eddie, that he did what he said he was going to do, and I have nothing but respect for that. Even though it was very hard, it wasn't easy. It wasn't an easy task. He fulfilled the contract, and he let me go with the Povetkin fight. Now it wasn't right, because I got a draw. We should have fought again, but they just picked Pulev to fight Dillian White. I should have been fighting Dillian White. I mean, not Pulev, Povetkin. Povetkin to fight Dillian White now. So it was a little, it kind of sucked, but I was out of the contract with them, and I didn't have any, I had no managers and nobody to keep them honest in that way, and then nobody to try to really negotiate because of whatever the circumstances. Everybody wants to, you know, take what I've already earned. You know what I'm saying? It'd be different if you could, just help me out. And, I'm not obliged to any percentage or anything if it's worth it. You know what I'm saying? And it makes sense. But, most of the 9 times out of 10, we have draconian contracts in boxing. And, they're not fair. They're always one-sided. And even if it's funny because even in the boxing world, most of the boxers, they get done wrong, but they cannot. A lot of them don't. They can't go to court. We can't afford it. We can't. We don't have the. Yeah, we can't have the backing. We need to continue. So we get beat out of that. I was beat just like that with Sky Sports. They wasted my time for over a year, and they could have easily made it right. They didn't. You know what I'm saying? And I was the one that lost.
Comes back to that
Yes.
low risk, low reward. And so
Right.
sometimes I feel like, and I don't know particularly that much about the business side, but I think just looking from the outside in, it feels like that if we continue to put pressure and make it difficult for certain individuals, it feels like the hope is you'll leave the game.
That's right. They tried to wait until I just was gonna just disappear. Like I said, it's a stall tactic, and that's what um unfortunate. It's unfortunate that that's the tactic that they have to use. Like I said, there's no NBA, there's no head. You know what I'm saying? We have commissions, but they're all over the place and scattered. So there's nobody to really keep you honest. The rules are what you make it. Anybody can come off the street and call themselves a professional today and just, pay a fee and, yeah, we're making it a little bit more. You gotta have something, but it's not like basketball, football, where you have to go to college and have to have these certain things and it's the wild, wild west. It really is. And I feel grateful though that I'm in the position that it is the wild, wild west because you have the opportunity. You know what I'm saying? You have a big opportunity to make it as grand and as big as you can make it.